Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at the function of strength and conditioning and how that relates to your wider training load. We're going to be looking at some of the mistakes that coaches and athletes make when they're planning or doing their strength and conditioning. And then we're going to look at how we rectify those and make sure that the work that we're doing in the gym transfers over and helps us get the most from the sports training that we're doing. So let's get into it. First of all, it's really important to understand what strength and conditioning is actually for. And the answer to that is that we want to promote general adaptations that aid us when we're actually performing the sport. We want to get in more high quality practice. We want to build a body that can handle the demands of the sport, do more high quality practice that is going to make us better and more effective in the sport that we're doing. To take this one step further, we are developing the qualities that underpin the motor actions that take place within the sport. This is the primary objective of the training that we do in the gym and our strength and conditioning training in general. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of words and scientific kind of jargon in there. So what does this actually mean in practice? Well, we can look at an example from a real sport. So if we look at a volleyball player who's trying to perform a spike, then having a greater range of motion in the shoulder and her arm, having strong and stable legs and a good rate of force development that allows her to jump quicker and express that force more quickly are all things that are going to aid her in her sport, and that's what we want to be working on in terms of athletic qualities in the gym. And this kind of brings us on to the issue of transference. So all strength and conditioning coaches are looking for the attributes that they're working on in the gym to transfer directly over into the sport. This is the holy grail of strength training, and this is what we're all looking for. We want the work that we're doing in the gym or on our strength and conditioning programming to transfer over and to make our athletes better at the sport itself. Otherwise, what's the point of doing the strength and conditioning training? The issue with this is that transference is something that's really difficult to attain. It's not something that really directly happens. If it did, we would just see people performing the movements of their sport under load, and we know that this is not the correct way or not the most efficient way to get the most from our strength and conditioning training. It's very difficult to overload those movements and progress them over time. So if performing sports movements under resistance is not an effective way to do your strength training, then why do we see so many people at the highest level continue to make these mistakes? Well, the answer comes down to that issue of transference. We're all looking for the work that we do in the gym to transfer directly over into the sport and make the athlete better. And it kind of makes sense in theory that performing a movement under resistance would be something that would transfer directly over into the sport. But why is that not actually the case? Well, the reason for that is that skill execution depends on laying down these neural pathways in your brain that tell your body how to perform these very complex motor actions. Doing these things in sequence is what constitutes the skill itself. And doing this under resistance changes the stimulus, and so there's no guarantee that your muscles will fire in the same way, that your brain will tell your body to perform that action in the same way. It all comes down to the SAID principle, or the specific adaptation to impose demand. Specific adaptation to impose demand means that your body will adapt to the stresses placed on it. So if you change the stress that you're placing on your body, then your body will adapt to only that stress. As soon as you change the stimulus again, then your body needs to lay down new neural adaptations to make you better at that. And so we don't see that issue of transference. What you get really good at if you're using a heavy tennis racket or shooting a really heavy basketball or something like that using a medicine ball is that you get really good at that specific skill, not getting better at throwing a basketball harder or hitting a forehand or a backhand harder if we're playing tennis. In fact, doing this can actually start to mess with established patterns and make you worse at the skill that you actually want to be able to do. So to put it simply, doing sports practice is what will make you better at the sport. And with strength training, all we're trying to do is build a body that can handle the demands of that sport and get more time doing high quality training without becoming too fatigued or, even worse than that, getting injured. And this is why performing a needs analysis when you're doing your strength and conditioning training is really, really important. So a needs analysis should help you to identify what the winning factors in the sport are. What are the winning conditions that cause a team or an individual athlete to win a competition? Because ultimately that's why we're doing this. Once we know what these are, we can break them down and start working on the athletic qualities that an athlete might need in order to bring those win conditions about or to make them happen. Again, what does this look like in practice? So if we take jiu-jitsu, for example, we need to look at what are the win conditions for a match in jiu-jitsu. Let's say we identify that athletes who spend more time in attacking cycles or in the top position will make more submission attempts. And it's reasonable to assume that making more submission attempts will lead to more submissions and so more wins. So once we know what these win conditions are, we would do a gap analysis with the athlete to work out where they are falling short of these performance standards, and then we can start looking at interventions to bring them up and improve those physical qualities that will help them to win more. If we go back to the jiu-jitsu example, this might be being able to execute a good takedown or being able to scramble really well if you do kind of lose top position or you end up in those kind of 50-50, might be him, might be you kind of positions where you need to make sure that you're the one that comes out on top and is able to react faster and get into that winning position. An example of a training intervention for this could be working on bringing up the anaerobic system, so the system that's responsible for shorter periods of really high intensity work, making sure that they can perform that action or scramble really well without experiencing too much fatigue. It might be building strong, stable legs to take down effectively by increasing their back squat, and then perhaps working on plyometrics and the rate of force development to ensure that when they do shoot for the takedown, they're able to execute effectively and take advantage of those small windows to do the takedown and get the person onto the ground. When it comes to this stuff, it's a case of breaking it down on an athlete by athlete basis for individual sports. You've got to look at what the athlete is good at and where they're lacking, and do what you can to make them into a more well-rounded athlete with a skill set that will help them to achieve those win conditions and ultimately win more matches. If you have any questions on any of this, then feel free to reach out to me or drop them in the comments below. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.